deep to the world's biggest economy. The pandemic hacked off a full third of America's GDP. How long could it take for our nation to actually recover? With a national election just 92 days away, the president pushes for an unprecedented postponement. Is Donald Trump justified or just trying to buy time? And here at home, amid a flurry of indictments, Harris County DA Kim Ogg calls HPD's narcotics division greedy and corrupt. How will her sweeping prosecution play with voters come November? I'm Greg Groogan, and welcome to What's Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's greet them. First up, Fox 26 legal analyst and Houston attorney Carmen Roe. Next, Raj Salhotra, executive director of Momentum Education. Third, longtime super neighborhood leader Tomaro Bell. Batting cleanup, legendary reporter turned investigative media consultant Wayne Dolcefino. And finally, Charles Blain, founder of the advocacy group Urban Reform. Let's begin. Death and destruction. Words devoid of hyperbole, which describe the past week in a nation still very much in the grip of pandemic. And while death and destruction are part of life, what matters here and now is the scope. We know now that America's economy has suffered the single biggest gut punch in modern history, a haircut of 33% in the nation's gross domestic product. And while both the rate of Texans testing positive and the number of new COVID-19 cases appear for now to be subsiding, the disease has killed more than 6,500 of our state citizens, the equivalent of 2 9/11 attacks. With millions unemployed and a first round of federal benefits gone, many families fear imminent eviction as Democrats and Republicans in Washington squabble over the size of a second, potentially multi-trillion-dollar relief package. Meantime, hospitals across Texas are currently at or beyond capacity. With that, I pose the question to our panel. What next? Tomaro Bell, take it away.
Let's start with the fact that you brought up how the GDP has went down so much. If nothing else, this should let people know why we should not have another shutdown. This right here should solidify that. What we have to do is more aggressive enforcement of the preventive measures we put in place. If you're going to say masks are required, if you don't have some way of enforcing that, especially when you have large gatherings, I'm happy that the grocery stores are now start doing it. They've been doing it for a minute, but there's a law at TABC that is allowing a lot of bars that have been shut down to flip to restaurants. That's fine if you're going to allow that, but they still have to abide by the rules. They're not wearing masks. They're not social distancing. As I said months ago, I don't feel we ever should have shut down. We should have enforced more preventive measures. And on this second packet that they're coming out with, if they don't deliver it right, I have several friends who got their dead parents' stimulus checks before they got their own. So if it's not more monitoring, it's not going to matter. And then when it comes to evictions, Greg, I told you that was my fear a long time ago. And what our local government had to go through to get them to even look at it, can't people understand that if you have more evictions, you have more homeless, crime is going to go up? This is not that hard. Logical consequences are the scarecrows of fools and the beacons of wise men. Thank you, Sir Thomas Huxley.
Okay, Raj, there is talk of another shutdown. Do you think that's necessary in order to put a stake in this virus?
I don't know if you need another shutdown, but you definitely need to ramp up what other countries have done to get this under control, which is number one, you got to ramp up the testing, which we have not done. We're not increasing the testing. Number two, you got to ensure everyone is wearing a mask. We have not mandated that in a serious way nationwide. And number three, you got to have the contact tracing so that when folks do have COVID, you can ensure that those around them, we can identify who they are and make sure that we do not allow this thing to spread. And quite frankly, coming back to this point around what is the federal government going to do, it just makes no sense in the middle of the worst economic challenge our country has ever seen in modern day to cut out the $600 unemployment benefits. Right? Or to stop putting money into the PPP, particularly for the smallest businesses, some of whom were left out the first time. And so I think rather than looking at do we need to fully shut down or not, there's actually real logical things we can do that are not happening and that other countries have done, which is why they've stemmed the tide much better than we have.
Okay, Charles, Blain, how much of that do you agree with? And $600, is that the magic number? And do we need it deep into next year?
Yeah, I think a lot of people do need it a little more than that. I mean, again, as we talked about on this program before, housing costs drive cost of living across this country, and not everyone has the same cost of living. $600 goes a lot farther here than it does in New York City. One thing that I was excited to see, though, council came out, or the mayor yesterday, Friday, came out with a solution, or excuse me, not a solution, but kind of stopgap measure where they're going to provide relief for some of the renters. And it was a combination of federal funding coming from the CARES Act that's going to go to rental relief. But the bigger part that I'm excited about is that it was a combination of funding also from the private sector and charities and nonprofits that stepped up and gave in some money to do this. And so I think it's important now that August 1st is come and gone, you know, folks are going to have to pay that rent, and that's not going away. And so to see them coming up with something, and they're going to vote on that package next week, it's going to be really helpful to a lot of people. I mean, renters are often the most housing cost burdened, and they certainly need it, because Tomorrow's right. You need to keep people in their homes if we're going to, you know, stop this virus from spreading. But also, we've seen a lot of council members Amy Peck, Tiffany Thomas, Edward Pollard, a lot of others who've worked with apartment owners in their district to try to come up with solutions. And one solution that was proposed last week was, giving some tax abatements to landlords who would choose to, work with their renters a little more. So I think we need innovative solutions like that, because people do need to stay in their homes if we're going to stop this virus.
Okay, Wayne, from the right, I'm hearing we are creating a culture of dependency. Do you agree with that contention?
Well, I guess I'm the right guy, but so let me say a couple of things. First of all, your Dracula analogy. You're not going to drive a stake in the heart of this virus. This virus is going to be here, folks. It's not ever going away. It's going to be here. But 50, 60, 70,000 people die a year from the flu. We didn't drive a stake in the heart of the flu. Second, contact tracing is the biggest joke, and let me tell you why. I've been helping the bars because I think they've been unfairly targeted. But the point is that I have talked to the Harris County Health Department, the City of Houston, and the State Health Department, although they don't call anyone bad, to ask, name me a place where we've actually proven that there's some spread of the evil virus. Just name me a place so we can warn people, right? You're thinking there was some horrible place out there, whether it's a bar or a church or wherever, we would say, hey, if you were at, Greg Groogan's house last week, you're going to get the virus. You don't hear that. Why don't you hear that in Texas? Because they do not know, okay? Look, I'm fine with helping people. The best way to help people is get everybody back to work. And it's going to be a cold day in hell before the government comes after me with a fine for wearing or not wearing a damn mask if I don't want to tomorrow. And I'll tell you what, please come get me. I want to be the first person you find. I got my mask. Congratulations. But don't make me wear it.
Carmen, the final 45 seconds goes to you.
So consistency and management are critical, but throwing money at this problem is not the answer. And so this eviction, rule that we just put into place, this is $15 million. We did this before and it was gone in 90 minutes, okay? So no kind of program was behind it to figure out how to actually use this money. It's like we want to get rid of money, but we don't want to do what really matters. So Austin, Dallas, they actually have a moratorium on these renters having to pay rent and giving some gap coverage there that Sylvester has not supported. Instead, he's decided to give another $15 million to these people. And this time he promises we're going to make sure it doesn't do the same thing that it did before, which is not get to the people that really matter. So throwing money at this problem is not the answer, and it's not going to help these people in Houston.
Got to leave it there. Still ahead. Texas schools ordered to welcome back students 8 weeks deep into the fall term. We ask a well-known expert if the mandate makes sense.